The morning Sarah Chen received the message that would change humanity forever, she was drinking coffee in her office at the United Earth Defense Command. Outside her window, the busy streets of Geneva looked peaceful. People walked to work. Children played in parks, and life continued as it had for thousands of years. Then her communication device lit up with an emergency signal. "Admiral Chen, please report to the command center immediately," came the voice of her assistant. There was something different in his tone, something scared. Sarah put down her coffee and walked quickly through the corridors. When she entered the command center, she saw dozens of people staring at the main screen. Their faces were pale, some were shaking. "What's the situation?" she asked. Colonel Martinez turned to face her. "Ma'am, we received a transmission 30 minutes ago. It came from outside our solar system. We've confirmed it's not from any human source." Sarah felt her heart race. First contact. After decades of listening to the stars and finding nothing, something had finally answered. "Show me," she said. The main screen flickered, and a figure appeared. It was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shine like crystal. Its eyes were large and silver, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music, mixed with the sound of breaking glass. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet," the being said. "I am Ambassador Zethrix of the Hegemony of Advanced Civilizations. Your species has reached a level of development that requires our attention." Sarah watched as the alien continued speaking. Its words were translated by some technology she couldn't understand, appearing as text at the bottom of the screen. "For the protection of galactic peace and order, you are hereby invited to join our collective as a protected species. You will send representatives to our capital world of Nexus Prime within 60 of your days. There, you will learn your place in the greater galaxy and accept the guidance necessary for your continued existence." The message continued with coordinates and technical details about how to reach their destination. Then it ended with words that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Failure to comply with this invitation will result in your classification as a developmental hazard. Such classifications require immediate correction. We await your response." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then everyone started talking at once. Scientists wanted to study the transmission. Military officers demanded to know about these aliens' capabilities. Politicians worried about how to tell the world. Sarah raised her hand for silence. "We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. Get me everything we can find about this transmission, where it came from, how it was sent, what technology they're using." Over the next 2 weeks, Earth's best minds worked around the clock. What they discovered was both amazing and terrifying. The aliens possessed technology far beyond human understanding. They could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Their ships could travel faster than light. Their computers could process information in ways that human scientists could barely imagine. But there was something else in the data. Hidden in the transmission were traces of other signals, fragments of communications between alien civilizations. Earth's code breakers worked day and night to understand these fragments. What they found painted a picture of a galaxy ruled by fear. The hegemony wasn't just a collection of advanced civilizations working together. It was a system of control where older species dominated younger ones. The fragments spoke of compliance, protocols, and biological modifications, and cultural adjustments. They mentioned species that had been corrected for showing too much independence. Sarah stood before the United Earth Council 3 weeks after the first transmission. Representatives from every nation sat in the Great Hall, their faces serious, as she delivered her report. "Based on our analysis," she said, "this hegemony operates on a simple principle. Older civilizations rule over newer ones. They use their advanced technology to force compliance from species they consider primitive. The invitation they sent us isn't really an invitation at all. It's a demand." President Martinez of the Americas leaned forward. "What are our options, Admiral? We can comply and hope they treat us well as a protected species. Or we can refuse and face whatever consequences they have in mind for developmental hazards." "What do you recommend?" asked Prime Minister Nakamura of the Pacific Union. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I recommend we go to their capital world, but not to surrender. We need to see this hegemony for ourselves. We need to understand exactly what we're facing." The decision was made to send a diplomatic mission to Nexus Prime. Sarah would lead a team of humanity's best diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. They would take the aliens' offered transportation and travel to the galactic capital. The alien ship that came to collect them was beautiful and terrifying. It was a mile long and made of what looked like living crystal. When Sarah and her team walked inside, the walls pulsed with soft light, and the air hummed with energy. Their alien escorts were polite, but distant. They answered basic questions about the journey but avoided discussing the hegemony itself. "You will learn everything you need to know on Nexus Prime," they repeated whenever asked for details. The journey took 5 days. Sarah spent the time studying her team's reports and preparing for what they might face. She also watched the stars through the ship's windows. They moved in ways that defied human understanding of physics, stretching and bending as the ship traveled faster than light. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, Sarah understood why it was called the Galactic Capital. The planet was covered in massive cities that stretched from pole to pole. Ships from hundreds of different species filled the sky. Some looked like the crystal vessel that had brought them. Others were made of metal or what appeared to be living tissue. The human delegation was taken to a great building at the planet's center. Inside, they found a vast chamber filled with beings from across the galaxy. There were creatures that looked like walking trees, beings made of pure energy, and things that hurt to look at directly. At the center of the chamber sat 3 figures on raised platforms. One was similar to the alien who had first contacted Earth, tall and crystal-skinned. The second was something like a cloud of sparkling lights that constantly shifted shape. The third was the most unsettling. It looked almost human, but its eyes were completely black, and its skin was too pale. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the crystal being said. Its voice echoed through the chamber without technology. "I am Prime. Coordinator Zethrix. These are my colleagues, the Architect Luminos and the Collective Representative Caney." Sarah stepped forward. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the people of Earth. We've come to learn about your hegemony and discuss our planet's future." "Your future has already been determined," said the cloud of lights that was Luminos. "You will become a protected species under our guidance. Your violent tendencies will be modified. Your chaotic political systems will be replaced with efficient administration. Your primitive technology will be upgraded to serve galactic needs." The human-like figure called Caney spoke in a voice that sounded like many people talking at once. "The collective has analyzed your species. You show promise in certain areas but require significant adjustment. Your military aggression must be eliminated. Your individualistic thinking must be corrected." Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "And if we refuse these adjustments?" Prime Coordinator Zethrix's silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Refusal is not an option. Species that resist correction become developmental hazards. Developmental hazards are eliminated for the safety of galactic civilization." Around the chamber, representatives of other species watched silently. Sarah noticed that many of them had the same look in their eyes, the empty stare of beings who had given up hope. "We need time to consider your offer," Sarah said. "You have 1 rotation of this planet," Zethrix replied. "Then you will accept our protection or face the consequences of your defiance." As the human delegation was escorted to their quarters, Sarah looked back at the great chamber. She saw the fear in the eyes of the galaxy's so-called representatives. She saw the cold arrogance of the hegemony's leaders, and she knew that humanity faced a choice that would determine not just their own future, but possibly the future of every free-thinking being in the galaxy. That night, as alien stars shone through her window, Sarah began planning for war. 3 months had passed since Admiral Chen returned from Nexus Prime with news that chilled every human leader to the bone. The hegemony's ultimatum was clear: submit to their protection or be destroyed as a developmental hazard. But in those 3 months, humanity had been busy learning the truth about their galactic neighbors. Dr. Marcus Rivera stared at the data scrolling across his screen in the underground research facility beneath the Swiss Alps. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, he had been tasked with understanding what the hegemony's protection really meant. What he had discovered made him sick to his stomach. "Sarah, you need to see this," he said into his communication device. Admiral Chen arrived within the hour, her face grim. The past months had aged her. Dark circles under her eyes showed the weight of knowing that humanity's survival hung by a thread. "What have you found, Marcus?" she asked. Dr. Rivera pulled up a holographic display showing genetic patterns. "Remember the delphines that the hegemony showed us? The aquatic species they claim to have uplifted and given advanced technology?" Sarah nodded. During their visit to Nexus Prime, they had been shown several success stories, species that had thrived under hegemony protection. "I managed to get genetic samples from the delegation quarters," Marcus continued. "The delphins weren't uplifted, Sarah. They were mutilated." The hologram shifted, showing 2 different genetic patterns side by side. "This is what delphin DNA looks like now, and this is what our computers project their original genetics were. The hegemony didn't give them technology to breathe underwater and process information faster. They surgically removed their creativity, their individual thinking, and their ability to feel complex emotions. They turned them into living computers." Sarah felt her hands clench into fists. "What about the others?" "The Krathan warrior caste? They used to be a peaceful species of philosophers and artists. The hegemony identified their physical strength and enhanced it while destroying the parts of their brains responsible for independent thought. Now they're mindless soldiers who feel only rage and loyalty to their masters." More holograms appeared, each showing the before and after of species under hegemony protection. The Melodians had been a race of singers whose music could reportedly heal emotional trauma. Now they were lobotomized entertainers who performed the same songs endlessly without understanding their meaning. "How many species?" Sarah asked quietly. "From what we can tell, hundreds, maybe thousands. The hegemony has been doing this for millions of years. They find young civilizations, study them to understand their useful traits, then modify them into specialized slave races." Sarah walked to the window, though it only showed the artificial lights of the underground facility. "What else have our teams discovered?" Dr. Rivera called up more data. "Intelligence Division has been monitoring hegemony communications. They're planning something called a compliance event for Earth. Based on the technical specifications they're discussing, it involves orbital platforms that can deliver targeted viruses to modify human DNA. Modify it how? They want to reduce our aggression and independent thinking while enhancing our ability to follow orders. They're particularly interested in our pattern recognition abilities and our capacity for working in small teams. They think we'd make excellent maintenance crews for their technology." Sarah turned back to face him. "How long do we have?" "Intelligence estimates 6 months before their compliance fleet arrives. They're being slow because they want to study us. More first. Apparently, humans are unusual." "Unusual how?" Marcus pulled up another display. "Most species the hegemony encounters develop along predictable paths. They advance in technology, build cities, explore their solar systems, but every species follows similar patterns of growth." "And we don't?" "Sarah, in the past century alone, Humans have gone from flying in crude aircraft to building space stations. Most species take 10 times that long to make similar advances. The hegemony has been watching us for thousands of years, and they can't predict our development. Dr. Rivera paused, then continued. There's something else. Our listening posts have been picking up fragments of older communications, references to previous observation teams that went missing around Earth, ships that simply vanished without explanation. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Missing how? We don't know. But Intelligence Division has found records going back 50,000. Years of hegemony scouts disappearing near our solar system. They always assumed it was equipment failure or natural phenomena. But the pattern is too consistent. A new voice interrupted their conversation. Admiral Chen, Dr. Rivera, please report to Conference Room Alpha immediately. They made their way through the facility's corridors, passing laboratories where Earth's best scientists worked around the clock to understand alien technology. In the conference room, they found General Patricia Voss, Director of Earth's Hidden Defense Projects. Sit down, General Voss said. Her voice was steady, but Sarah could see excitement in her eyes. We've made a breakthrough. She activated a holographic projector. 3 days ago, our deep space monitors detected a hegemony scout ship at the edge of our solar system. It was conducting what appeared to be routine surveillance. The hologram showed a sleek alien vessel moving between asteroids near Neptune. Yesterday, the ship disappeared from our sensors. At first, we thought it had left the system. Then this morning, we found it. The image changed to show wreckage floating in space. The alien ship had been torn apart, its crystal hull shattered into millions of pieces. What destroyed it? Sarah asked. General Voss smiled. We did. Or rather, something we built destroyed it. She pulled up technical schematics. 50 years ago, when we first started detecting unusual signals from deep space, a small group of military planners began preparing for the possibility of hostile contact. They created Project Pandora, a series of defense systems hidden throughout our solar system. Sarah stared at the schematics. The technology was clearly human, but far more advanced than anything she had seen before. The automated defense platforms have been waiting in the asteroid belts and outer planets for decades, General Voss continued. They're designed to look like space debris or natural formations. When the hegemony scout got too close to one of our listening posts, the platform activated. How is this possible? Dr. Rivera asked. This technology is beyond our current capabilities. That's what we thought too, General Voss said. But when the Pandora Project started reviewing classified research from the past century, they found something interesting. Many of our greatest scientific breakthroughs came from researchers who died in mysterious accidents shortly after their discoveries. She pulled up files showing dozens of scientists and inventors. Nikola Tesla, rocket propulsion pioneers, early computer developers, nuclear physicists. The official reports say they died in accidents or from natural causes. But the timing was always right after they made discoveries that might have led to breakthrough technologies. Sarah felt a chill. You think the hegemony was assassinating our scientists? For thousands of years, keeping us from advancing too quickly. But some of their research survived in classified archives. When Project Pandora combined those hidden discoveries with modern technology, they were able to build things the hegemony never expected. General Voss pulled up images of construction facilities hidden in remote locations around Earth and throughout the solar system. For 50 years, we've been secretly building an industrial base the hegemony knows nothing about. Factories hidden in ocean trenches, shipyards inside hollowed-out asteroids, research stations on the dark side of the moon. How many people know about this? Sarah asked. Less than 10,000 worldwide. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel who have been preparing for this day. While the hegemony thinks they're dealing with a primitive species that just learned to leave their home planet, we've actually been colonizing our solar system in secret for decades. Dr. Rivera leaned forward. What's our actual technological level? In some areas, we're already beyond what the hegemony thinks is possible for a young species. Our computers use quantum processing that their surveillance can't detect. Our ships can travel through folded space in ways they haven't seen before. And our weapons? General Voss paused. Let's just say the scout ship that disappeared was destroyed by technology that attacks from dimensions the hegemony doesn't know exist. Sarah stood up and walked around the room, trying to process what she had learned. So we've been pretending to be primitive while secretly building a defense force? Not just a defense force, General Voss corrected, an invasion force. If the hegemony wants to enslave humanity, they're going to discover that they picked the wrong species to threaten. The general activated one final display. It showed star charts marking hundreds of systems throughout the galaxy. These are the locations of every species currently under hegemony control. In 6 months, when their compliance fleet arrives at Earth, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise. And after we deal with them, we're going to pay a visit to every one of these systems. Sarah looked at the star chart, then at Dr. Rivera's data about the enslaved species, then back at General Voss. You're talking about declaring war on a galactic empire that's existed for millions of years. The hegemony compliance fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly 6 months after their ultimatum expired. Prime Coordinator Zethrix stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue planet through advanced sensors. Around him, 1,000 ships spread out in perfect formation, crystal vessels from his own people, biomechanical constructs from the collective, and energy platforms controlled by the architects. Begin orbital positioning, Zethrix commanded. Prepare the compliance protocols. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet through the hidden sensors scattered throughout the solar system. She stood in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by displays showing every ship in the enemy formation. Her staff worked quietly at their stations, their faces calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. Fleet status. Report, she said. All Pandora defense platforms are online and ready, reported Captain Williams. Hidden shipyards report full operational status. Our main fleet is standing by in the outer system. Sarah nodded. For 50 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. What the hegemony saw as a primitive solar system with one inhabited planet was actually a fortress that had been decades in the making. Communications, patch me through to the hegemony flagship. The main screen flickered, and Prime Coordinator Zethrix appeared. His silver eyes gleamed with confidence as he looked at the human woman he remembered from Nexus Prime. Admiral Chen, he said, his musical voice carrying across space. I had hoped your species would choose wisdom. Instead, you have chosen extinction. I've chosen freedom, Sarah replied calmly. But before we begin, I want to show you something. She gestured to her communications officer, who activated a signal that went out across the solar system. Suddenly, objects that had appeared to be asteroids, space debris, and natural formations began to change. Hidden panels opened, revealing weapons and sensors. Entire artificial structures materialized from what had seemed like empty space. Zethrix's confident expression faltered as his sensors detected hundreds, then thousands of human installations throughout the solar system. Impossible. Our surveillance showed no significant industrial development. Your surveillance saw what we wanted it to see, Sarah said. Did you really think a species capable of global communication networks couldn't hide things from your sensors? On the hegemony flagship, alerts began sounding as tactical officers reported impossible readings. The human solar system contained technology that shouldn't exist, stealth systems that could hide entire fleets, energy signatures that defied known physics, and weapons that registered as active but couldn't be properly targeted. Admiral, reported a crystal-skinned officer, our sensors are detecting massive industrial complexes inside several asteroids and on the dark sides of planets. The power readings suggest construction capabilities far beyond what this species should possess. Zethric straightened, his crystalline features hardening. It doesn't matter. No young species can stand against the combined might of the hegemony. Begin the attack. The alien fleet moved forward, their weapons charging with energies that could shatter planets. But as they advanced, space around them began to change. What had appeared to be empty vacuums suddenly filled with objects that materialized from nowhere. Human ships that seemed to step out of folded space itself. The first volley of alien fire struck the leading human vessels, expecting to see them destroyed instantly. Instead, the energy beams bent around the ships like water flowing around rocks. The human vessels absorbed the attacks into glowing shields that seemed to strengthen rather than weaken under fire. "What technology is this?" demanded Architect Luminos, its cloud form flickering with confusion. Sarah's voice came through the communication channel, calm and steady. "Dimensional physics. While you were congratulating yourselves on your superiority, we were learning to manipulate space-time itself." The human counterattack began with weapons the hegemony had never seen before. Beams that struck from 17 different angles simultaneously, bypassing shields by attacking through parallel dimensions. Missiles that existed in multiple realities at once, making them impossible to intercept. Energy weapons that turned the aliens' own defensive systems against them. The crystal ships of Zethrix's people found their quantum barriers useless against attacks that came from dimensions their technology couldn't access. The collective's biomechanical vessels discovered that their adaptive armor couldn't adapt to weapons that changed their fundamental properties mid-flight. The architects' energy platforms learned that their reality-warping abilities meant nothing against humans who had learned to fight in 7 dimensions at once. But the most shocking moment came when the hegemony tried to use their most feared weapon, the planet crackers. These massive devices could split a world in half with focused gravitational forces. As 3 planet crackers charged their weapons and aimed at Earth, something impossible happened. The weapons simply stopped working. "Report!" Zethrix commanded, his musical voice now harsh with panic. "Sir, the planet crackers are showing catastrophic system failures. Their quantum cores are destabilizing. It's as if something is rewriting their fundamental programming." On Earth, Dr. Marcus Rivera smiled as he watched his computer screens. "Cyber Warfare Division reports complete penetration of hegemony network systems," he announced to Admiral Chen. "Their quantum computers are actually easier to hack than we expected. They never considered that a primitive species might develop quantum encryption methods they couldn't break." Sarah nodded. "Phase 2, General Voss." Throughout the solar system, the hidden shipyards that had been building humanity's secret fleet for decades opened their massive doors. Thousands of human warships emerged from concealment, their hulls gleaming with technology that made the hegemony fleet look ancient by comparison. These weren't the primitive vessels the aliens expected. They were sleek predators that moved through space like living things, their engines bending space-time to achieve impossible speeds. Their weapons fired projectiles that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their shields were powered by captured energy from parallel universes. The human fleet moved with a coordination that confused the alien commanders. Where hegemony forces fought in rigid formations with predetermined tactics, the humans flowed, like water around their enemies, adapting their strategy moment by moment. "How are they coordinating so precisely?" demanded Collective Representative Caney, its multiple voices speaking in unison. "Our sensors detect no central command network." The answer came from Admiral Chen herself. "Every human ship is crewed by individuals who think for themselves. We don't need a central command network because each captain can adapt to changing situations instantly. That's the advantage of not lobotomizing your people." As the battle raged, more surprises emerged. Human ships that took damage didn't retreat. For repairs, instead, they seemed to learn from each attack and become stronger. Weapons that worked the first time found themselves less effective with each subsequent use as human defenses adapted in real time. The turning point came when a group of human vessels did something the hegemony had never seen before. They deliberately flew into the gravitational field of one of the damaged planet crackers and somehow used its destructive energy to power their own weapons. The resulting blast destroyed an entire hegemony battle group in seconds. "Impossible!" Zethric screamed. "No species can weaponize a planet cracker's collapse." "You're thinking in 3 dimensions," Sarah replied through the communication channel. "We learned to fight in 17. But perhaps the most terrifying moment for the hegemony came when they realized that humanity wasn't just defending their solar system. They were studying every alien weapon and technology in real time. Human ships began firing modified versions of hegemony weapons back at their creators, improved versions that were more powerful than the originals. Within hours, the once mighty compliance fleet was scattered and broken. Half their ships were destroyed, a quarter were disabled, and the rest were retreating in panic. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. "Open a channel to all hegemony vessels," she commanded. When the connection was established, she spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. Your compliance fleet has been defeated. Your planet crackers have been destroyed. Your most advanced technology has been captured and improved upon. But we're not done." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "For 50,000 years, you've kept humanity suppressed. You've murdered our scientists, sabotaged our development, and planned to enslave our people. You've done the same to hundreds of other species across the galaxy. That ends now." On the alien ships, crew members stared at their screens in shock as Sarah continued. "We know the locations of every world under your control. We know how to free the species you've enslaved. And we know how to destroy your empire. You have one choice. Surrender now and help us undo the damage you've caused, or we'll tear your civilization apart piece by piece." Prime Coordinator Zethric, his crystal form cracked and dim, stared at the human woman on his screen. "You don't understand what you're—" The news of the compliance fleet's destruction reached Nexus Prime 3 days after the battle ended. Prime Coordinator Zethrix's damaged flagship limped into the capital system, broadcasting emergency codes that hadn't been used in 10 million years. Across the galaxy, hegemony worlds received the impossible report. A primitive species had not only defeated their greatest fleet, but had done so with disturbing ease. Emergency councils convened on every major hegemony world. The architects' energy beings flickered with agitation as they reviewed the battle data. The collective's hive minds buzzed with calculations and recalculations. Ancient species that had ruled the galaxy since before Earth's sun was born gathered to discuss a threat they had never imagined possible. "The humans destroyed 17 planet crackers," reported Commander Vexhai of the Krathan warrior caste, his modified brain struggling to process tactical data his original species might have understood better. "They weaponized our own technology against us. Our best ships were torn apart by improved versions of our own weapons." Architect Luminos pulsed with confused energy patterns. "This should not be possible. Young species follow predictable development paths. They advance slowly, make obvious mistakes, and fall easily to established powers. These humans violated every law of galactic development." Collective Representative Caney spoke with its 1,000 voices in unison. "Analysis suggests the humans have been concealing their true capabilities for decades. Our surveillance detected only primitive nuclear technology and chemical rockets. Reality shows quantum manipulation, dimensional physics, and industrial capacity exceeding our own." The gathered representatives fell silent as they considered the implications. For millions of years, the hegemony had maintained order through a simple principle. Older civilizations possessed superior technology and therefore natural authority over younger ones. The humans had shattered that principle in a single battle. But while the hegemony leaders debated, Admiral Sarah Chen was already implementing humanity's next phase, deep in the command bunkers beneath Earth's surface. She stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated hegemony-controlled systems. Yellow markers showed enslaved species. Blue markers represented the growing positions of human forces. "Status report on Operation Liberation," she commanded. General Voss stepped forward, her expression grim but determined. "Phase 1 is complete. Our advanced fleets have reached 17 systems where the hegemony maintains slave populations. Initial reconnaissance shows the aliens are panicking. They're moving their most valuable assets and increasing security around their modification facilities." Dr. Rivera joined them at the display. "The intelligence we captured from their damaged ships is revealing the full scope of their crimes. Sarah, they've been doing this for over 3 million years. Hundreds of species have been modified, enslaved, or destroyed. The genetic damage alone will take generations to repair." Sarah studied the star chart, her jaw clenched with anger. "What about their response to our ultimatum?" "They're mobilizing everything," General Voss replied. "Every ship, every weapon, every slave army they've created. They're calling it the final consolidation. A last, desperate attempt to maintain their empire by destroying any species that might threaten their rule." The holographic display shifted to show massive fleets converging from across the galaxy. Crystal ships, biomechanical constructs, energy platforms, and worse, vessels crewed by enslaved species that had been modified to feel only loyalty and rage. "How many ships are we looking at?" Sarah asked. "Conservative estimate? 2 million vessels. They're stripping defenses from every system they control. If they lose this battle, their empire collapses completely." Sarah nodded. "Good. Then they understand the stakes." But as humanity prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history, something unexpected happened. In system after system throughout hegemony space, the enslaved populations began to rebel. The news of Earth's victory had spread through underground networks that the aliens didn't know existed. Species that had been modified and controlled for millennia suddenly remembered what freedom meant. On the water world of Aquatica, the Delphins who had been turned into living computers began refusing orders. Their modified brains couldn't feel complex emotions, but they could still process information, and the information told them that their masters were not invincible. In the crystal cities of Jektar, the Melodian entertainers stopped singing the mindless songs they had been programmed to perform. Instead, they began humming half-remembered melodies from their species' forgotten past, songs of rebellion and hope that their ancestors had sung before the hegemony silenced them forever. The Krathan warrior worlds erupted in chaos as the modified. Soldiers began questioning orders for the first time in millions of years. Their original species had been philosophers and artists before the hegemony enhanced their aggression and destroyed their creativity. Now, fragments of their true nature began breaking through the mental conditioning. Prime Coordinator Zethrix received reports of uprisings on 50 worlds simultaneously. "This is impossible," he declared, his crystal form flickering with stress patterns. "The modifications are permanent. The loyalty programming cannot be broken." "The humans did something to our quantum networks during the battle," reported a technician. "They left behind code fragments that are spreading through our systems. The enslaved populations are receiving information that contradicts their conditioning." Architect Luminos materialized beside Zethrix, its energy form crackling with anger. "These humans fight not just with weapons, but with ideas. They are spreading concepts of freedom and individual thought. Such concepts are viruses that destroy ordered civilization." Meanwhile, in space, the two greatest fleets in galactic history moved toward each other. The hegemony force was massive beyond comprehension, millions of ships representing dozens of species and tens of thousands of years of military development. But the human fleet that rose to meet them was something entirely new. Humanity had spent the months since their first victory mass-producing ships using technology that defied galactic understanding. Their vessels didn't just travel faster than light. They moved through folded space, allowing them to appear anywhere instantly. They didn't just carry weapons, they carried the collective knowledge and adaptability of an entire species that had learned to turn any tool into a weapon. The battle began in the void between star systems, where space itself became a weapon. Hegemony forces opened fire with planet crackers and reality-warping energy beams, expecting to overwhelm the smaller human fleet through sheer firepower. Instead, they discovered that humans had learned to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. Human ships didn't just dodge enemy fire. They existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them nearly impossible to target. When hegemony weapons did connect, the damage was absorbed and converted into power for even stronger counterattacks. Most disturbing of all, the human vessels seemed to learn from every exchange, becoming more effective against their enemies with each passing moment. "Their ships are adapting faster than our computers can calculate," reported a collective drone ship captain. "Each weapon we use becomes less effective. Each tactic we employ becomes predictable to them." But the real shock came when the human fleet demonstrated their most terrifying capability. They could take control of enemy vessels in real time. Hegemony ships found their own weapons turning against their former allies as human cyber warfare. Specialists rewrote their programming mid-battle. "How are they doing this?" Zethrix demanded as his own ship's systems began showing signs of infiltration. The answer came from Dr. Rivera, broadcasting from Earth across the entire battlefield. "Your technology is built on the assumption that only your species understand quantum computing. But we've been studying your communications for months. Your quantum networks are actually more primitive than what we developed in secret." As the battle raged, something even more significant was happening. Human ships weren't just defeating their enemies, they were communicating with the enslaved crews aboard hegemony vessels. In dozens of languages, human voices spoke words of hope and freedom to beings who had forgotten such concepts existed. "You don't have to fight for them," Sarah Chen's voice echoed across the battlefield. "You don't have to die for the species that enslaved you. We're here to free you, not destroy you." One by one, ships crewed by enslaved species began changing sides. Modified soldiers who had been programmed to feel only loyalty suddenly remembered what it meant to choose. Enslaved workers who had been turned into living tools suddenly recalled what it meant to think for themselves. The hegemony commanders watched in horror as their own fleets turned against them. Million-year-old alliances crumbled in hours as species after species broke free from their mental conditioning and joined the human liberation force. "This is impossible!" Zethrix screamed as his flagship found itself surrounded by former allies. "The modifications are irreversible! The loyalty programming cannot be broken!" "Everything can be broken," Admiral Chen replied through the communication channels. "Even ancient evils, even galactic empires built." The final battle for the galaxy began not with weapons, but with words. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the newly built human flagship Terra's Promise, surrounded by representatives from 47 species that had broken free from hegemony control. Former slaves worked alongside human officers, their minds finally clear after millennia of enforced servitude. The bridge hummed with dozens of languages as freed peoples coordinated the largest liberation fleet in galactic history. Through the ship's main viewer, Sarah could see the core systems, the last stronghold of the hegemony. 3-star systems surrounded by defensive platforms that could destroy entire fleets, populated by the oldest and most powerful alien species, defended by technologies that predated human civilization by millions of years. "Admiral," reported Captain Williams, her longtime aide, "our scouts confirm the hegemony has activated the Nexus Array." Sarah felt a chill. According to intelligence gathered from captured systems, the Nexus Array was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, a network of reality manipulation devices that could rewrite the laws of physics across multiple star systems. If fully activated, it could make human technology useless and instantly restore the enslaved species to their modified states. Time to full activation? She asked. 72 hours, replied Dr. Rivera from his science station. But Sarah, if they complete the sequence, they won't just restore their empire. They'll be able to modify reality itself to prevent any future rebellions. They could make it physically impossible for enslaved species to think about freedom. Sarah nodded grimly. The final phase of their war wouldn't just determine who controlled the galaxy. It would determine whether concepts like freedom and individual thought could exist at all. Open a channel to all hegemony systems, she commanded. The main screen flickered, showing the faces of the remaining hegemony leaders. Prime Coordinator Zethrix looked ancient now, his crystal form cracked and dimmed. Architect Luminos pulsed with unstable energy patterns. Collective Representative Kaney's multiple voices spoke with less unity than before. Admiral Chen, Zethrix said, his musical voice now harsh with desperation. You have won your battles, but you do not understand what you are destroying. The hegemony maintains order in the galaxy. Without our guidance, civilizations fall into chaos and destroy themselves. Sarah looked directly into the alien's silver eyes. Order built on slavery isn't order at all. It's just organized suffering. You speak of freedom, Luminos interrupted, its energy form crackling with anger. But freedom leads to conflict. Young species make wars, destroy their worlds, commit atrocities against each other. We have prevented countless tragedies by maintaining control. By stealing their choice, Sarah replied. By lobotomizing entire species. By turning thinking beings into living tools. You didn't prevent tragedies. You became one. Behind her, former Dolphin Commander Sektar spoke up, his voice still mechanical from the modifications, but filled with newfound determination. You took our songs. You took our dreams. You took our children and turned them into computers. We would rather make mistakes as free beings than live as perfect slaves. The Krathan General Vox High nodded, his warrior-enhanced body still bearing the scars of modification, but his mind finally clear. My people were philosophers once. We wrote poetry and studied the stars. You made us into killers and called it improvement. Never again. Zethrix's form flickered with what might have been genuine confusion. But look at what you have achieved under our guidance. Advanced technology, interstellar travel, unified civilizations. Would you give up all progress to return to primitive independence? We'll make our own progress, Sarah said firmly. All of us, together. Not as slaves following orders, but as free peoples choosing our own path. And if you choose wrong, Architect Luminos demanded, if your freedom leads to galactic war, if young civilizations destroy themselves with technologies they don't understand. Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. Then she spoke with calm certainty. Then we'll learn from our mistakes and do better. That's what freedom means, the right to fail, to learn, and to grow. You've stolen that from billions of beings for millions of years. Enough, Collective Representative Kaney interrupted with its 1,000 voices. You cannot defeat the Nexus Array. When it activates, all modifications will be restored. All rebellions will end. Order will return to the galaxy. No, Sarah said, simply. It won't. She gestured to Dr. Rivera, who activated a holographic display showing the core systems. Red markers indicated the Nexus Array installations, but now they were surrounded by blue markers representing human and allied forces. While you've been preparing your ultimate weapon, Sarah explained, we've been studying it. Your Nexus Array manipulates reality by accessing quantum foundations of space-time. It's impressive technology for a species that thinks in only 3 dimensions. The alien leaders watched in growing horror as the display showed human ships moving into positions around each array installation. These weren't attack formations. They were something far more sophisticated. You see, Dr. Rivera added, Your array assumes that reality has fixed rules that can be rewritten. But human mathematics suggests that reality is more flexible than you think. We've learned to work with 17 dimensions of space-time. Your three-dimensional reality manipulation is like trying to control a sphere by drawing lines on a circle. Impossible, Zethrix whispered. No young species can comprehend dimensional mathematics beyond basic relativity. You keep underestimating us, Sarah replied. That's been your biggest mistake. As the human fleet moved closer to the core systems, something unprecedented began happening throughout the galaxy. On every world where enslaved species lived, the hidden quantum networks that Dr. Rivera's team had planted during previous battles activated simultaneously. These weren't weapons or communication systems. They were consciousness amplifiers, technology that enhanced a being's ability to think clearly, to remember their true nature, to break through millennia of mental conditioning. Across hundreds of worlds, billions of enslaved beings suddenly remembered who they had been before the hegemony changed them. The result was chaos on a galactic scale. Enslaved populations didn't just rebel, they began helping each other remember their original cultures, languages, and ways of thinking. Scientists who had been modified to only follow orders started thinking creatively again. Warriors who had been programmed for mindless loyalty began questioning their commanders. Even the most heavily modified beings found fragments of their original selves breaking through the mental barriers. "What have you done?" Zethrix demanded, watching reports pour in from across the galaxy. "We've given them a choice," Sarah replied. "For the first time in millions of years, every enslaved being in the galaxy can choose who they want to be." But the real shock came when the hegemony tried to activate their Nexus array. The reality manipulation devices powered up successfully, their ancient technology working exactly as designed. Energy fields that could rewrite the laws of physics spread out from each installation, reaching toward human ships that should have been helpless against such overwhelming power. Instead, the human vessels seemed to absorb the reality-warping energy and redirect it. Ships that had been destroyed rematerialized instantly. Weapons that had been disabled became more powerful than before. Most impossibly, the array's reality manipulation began working in reverse. Instead of restoring hegemony control, it started, amplifying the freedom and independence of every being it touched. How? Architect Luminos pulsed with desperate energy. The array rewrites reality itself. Only the reality you understand, Admiral Chen replied. But we've learned to exist in realities you can't perceive. Your array can rewrite three-dimensional space-time, but it can't affect the 17 dimensions where our ships actually exist. The final blow came not from weapons, but from an act of unprecedented mercy. As the hegemony's defenses crumbled, and their reality manipulation failed, Sarah Chen transmitted a message to every being in the core systems, not just the enslaved populations, but the hegemony leaders themselves. "We could end you now," her voice echoed across the 3-star systems. "Our ships exist in dimensions you can't reach. Our weapons use physics you don't understand. Our quantum networks have already taken control of your most vital systems. But we won't destroy you, because that would make us like you." She paused, letting her words reach every alien leader who had ruled the galaxy through fear and force. "Instead, we're going to give you the same choice we've given everyone else. The choice to be free. Free to think for yourselves. Free to choose your own path. Free to make mistakes and learn from them. Free to be better than you were." Across the core systems, the reality-warping energy of the corrupted Nexus array began affecting the hegemony leaders themselves. For the first time in millions of years, ancient beings who had never questioned their right to rule began experiencing doubt, empathy, and the possibility of change. Prime Coordinator Zethrix felt something he hadn't experienced since his species first achieved interstellar travel. Curiosity about what other beings thought and felt. Architect Luminos found its energy patterns abai.